Saving the world is boring. Hello Game Masters and welcome to GM Genie, the channel where I show you tips and techniques that can turn your story into your player's dream game. If there's one thing I've learned over years of playing role-playing games, it's that saving the world is boring. If you're like me, then when you're writing a game, you naturally gravitate toward big, epic kind of plots where worlds hang in the balance much more easily than you can write a small-scale adventure. Trying to earn a membership in the Thieves Guild. Just running an everyday cargo shipment when something really strange happens. Where the biggest thing hanging in the balance is just maybe these characters' lives. I say it's easier to write the save the world scenario. It's not really. It's usually more work. But if you're like me, it's easier to think of that kind of story. What am I going to write for my next game? Oh, I want it to have the epic conflict and unspeakable odds, all the stuff I mentioned before. The thing is, that kind of campaign concept, while it's exciting on paper, in my experience, tends to be pretty samey in practice. And sameness is the enemy of good gaminess. And that kind of thing runs on for many, many sessions, makes it almost impossible to do a casual game. And not to mention that the story ends up being emotionally shallow, almost inevitably. Because when players are up against saving the world, it's not a quest that they have to relate to emotionally. You're gonna go on this quest because duh, not because there's any kind of love or passion driving these characters onto the quest. You just kind of have to. I've even run a game where the PCs had very developed emotional interrelationships with each other, but it never really came out at the table because they were distracted with these huge obstacles that we've got to take on. The flow of the story never really got over there. And that's just not your most interesting game. Engaging emotions is every bit as important as engaging the imagination or the spirit of excitement. And if you notice, in movies, even movies about saving the world, it's always the little conflicts that get those characters emotionally engaged. They never end up saving the world for the world. They save the world for the minor character who looked up to them and got killed. They save the world for their family, or because the evil overlord killed my dog. Well, today I want to share with you a tool, more of a philosophy you can use in your storytelling to build those emotional connections, to tell small stories that your players can really engage with, and even to inject more life into those save the world campaigns. Ordinary heroism, something you don't see a lot of even in small-scale games. I'll give you an example. We've all seen scenarios where the PCs come to some devastated village and the houses have been burned and the people are desolate, and this is the work of the main bad guy. It gives you even more motivation to rid his evil from the land by smashing his orb of power. Get the quest you were already on. But what if the townspeople ask the player characters to help in a much more mundane way? They need food and blankets. When you're running a game, it's easy to treat the NPCs as just kind of a delivery mechanism for information about the big bad, instead of treating them like real people who live here. I mean, the typical townsperson who's walking around in a devastated village doesn't know what the campaign's about. He doesn't know how international politics work. He doesn't know how magic works. All he knows is that his family just lost their home, and if they don't get food and blankets, they're gonna die. So having your PCs ride to the city to get supplies, or run guard duty on a refugee train as they go through bandit-infested woods. It's not gonna be very glorious, but it's gonna be real. Real heroism. Just take your ordinary quest hooks and kind of turn them on their head. Oh, our sacred MacGuffin was stolen by some ruffians, and without it, we're going to have problems. Well, maybe you find out the people who stole said MacGuffin were needy themselves, and doing the right thing it's more complicated. It's going to take more work than just kill some guys and grab the loot. What if you made your players solve a problem in a way that took a little more leadership, more humility, more time, at least from the player character's point of view, a little more sacrifice? And that's the key to ordinary heroism, is it has to cost these characters something. They may have to choose between doing this and taking care of some more important goal. They might get killed before getting back on the main quest. Maybe they have to put themselves in the position of potentially being very unpopular by standing up for the little guy. When you're saving the world, really none of that's at stake. The PC could die, but that doesn't cost cost as much as dying before you ever got back on the main quest for somebody who was insignificant in terms of world affairs. And this doesn't have to be something where you delicately lead your players to figure out that this is the right thing to do. If you lay this in front of them as clearly as the townspeople coming up and asking them for food and blankets, you're still going to be leading your players into a unique roleplay experience where they got to be the heroes. You're going to be populating your game world with little stories of the people who live there, so that when your players go on back to the main story, even if it's the most cliche save the world story ever, they're going to feel like this is a world they are a part of, full of real people who they've chosen to fight for, not just fighting for an abstraction. It's a tool that's actually perfect for save the world storytelling because it's exactly the kind of thing that those characters should be doing. But game masters and players don't always think to give it to them. And when they walk away from your table, you won't just have stirred their imaginations. You won't just have stirred their sense of excitement and fun. You will have stirred their hearts. And that can be the greatest thing about this hobby. Well, that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe or share in the comments ways that you've engaged your players' emotions or incorporated ordinary heroics into your own games. I would love to hear from you. And until then, happy gaming. We'll see you next time.